The forest stood still, silent, waiting. Its ancient trees loomed like silent sentinels, casting long shadows on the forest floor. 5 friends, excited for their New Year's adventure, stepped into the woods. Their laughter echoed, a stark contrast to the forest's eerie silence. They joked and laughed, oblivious to the darkness that awaited. The air grew cold, and the trees seemed to close in around them. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. She glanced around, feeling the weight of the forest's gaze.
Did you feel that? The air feels different.
Feel what? You're just scared. Jake's voice was dismissive, but his eyes darted nervously.
But his laughter felt forced. The forest's silence was unnerving, pressing in on them. The woods were silent, except for the sound of their own footsteps. Too silent. The friends felt a growing unease, as if the forest itself was watching. They hiked deeper into the woods, their flashlights cutting through the dense trees. Old Man Hemlock's warning echoed in Sarah's mind. Beware the shadows of the forest on New Year's Eve.
Do you think there's any truth to what Old Man Hemlock said?
Nah, it's just an old wives' tale. Nothing to worry about.
Still, it does feel a bit eerie out here.
They found a clearing and set up camp. The fire crackled merrily, casting dancing shadows on the surrounding trees. For a while their laughter filled the night, pushing away the unease, but as the night deepened, the shadows seemed to grow longer, stretching towards them like grasping claws. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, her eyes darting to the darkened edges of the forest. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves and sending shivers down their spines. Whispers seemed to dance on the wind, too faint to understand but filled with malice. They carried a sense of foreboding, as if the forest itself was trying to communicate a warning. The friends fell silent, their earlier excitement replaced by a growing sense of dread. Each whisper seemed to grow louder, more insistent, as if urging them to leave.
Did you hear that?
It's just the wind.
But his voice lacked conviction. He tried to reassure himself, but the whispers seemed to seep into his mind, planting seeds of doubt and fear. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig heightened their anxiety. The fire sputtered, casting flickering shadows that seemed to writhe and twist like living things. The whispers grew louder, almost as if they were coming from the shadows themselves. The shadows were closing in, and with them the whispers became a cacophony of fear and unease, enveloping the group in a suffocating embrace. Sarah stumbled upon an old leather-bound journal hidden beneath a pile of leaves. The forest was eerily silent, the only sound being the rustle of leaves under her feet. She hesitated for a moment, her fingers trembling as she reached for the journal. The leather was cracked and worn, a testament to its age. She could feel a strange energy emanating from it, as if it held secrets long forgotten by time. Its pages were brittle with age, filled with frantic scribblings. She read aloud, her voice barely a whisper in the stillness of the forest. The words seemed to leap off the pages, each one more disturbing than the last. The handwriting was erratic, the ink smudged in places, as if the writer had been in a great hurry or under immense stress. She could almost feel the fear and desperation that had driven the author to pen these words.
The shadows, they're real. They take you, one by one, on New Year's Eve. The voice in her head was frantic, almost hysterical. She could picture the writer alone in the dark forest, surrounded by unseen terrors. The shadows seemed to come alive in her mind, creeping closer with every word she read. She could feel their cold breath on her neck, their icy fingers reaching out to claim her.
A cold dread gripped her heart. She looked around, half expecting to see the shadows materialize before her eyes. The forest, once a place of peace and solitude, now felt like a prison, its towering trees closing in on her. She clutched the journal to her chest, as if it could somehow protect her from the horrors it described. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the cryptic warnings and the terrifying imagery. The journal was a chronicle of fear, a desperate warning from someone lost to the woods. Each entry was a testament to the writer's growing paranoia and despair. The dates were erratic, some pages filled with detailed accounts, others with barely legible scrawls. It was clear that the writer had been driven to the brink of madness by the relentless pursuit of the shadows. Sarah could feel the weight of their fear pressing down on her, making it hard to breathe. It spoke of the shadows not as mere darkness, but as entities hungry and malevolent. They were described in vivid detail, their forms shifting and changing, always just out of sight. The writer had tried to capture their essence in words, but the true horror of the shadows was beyond description. They were more than just a figment of the imagination. They were a living, breathing nightmare. Sarah could almost see them, lurking in the corners of her vision, waiting for the right moment to strike. The journal spoke of a ritual, a way to appease the shadows. It was a complex and dangerous ceremony involving ancient symbols and forbidden incantations. The writer had painstakingly detailed each step, warning of the dire consequences of failure. Sarah's heart pounded as she read the instructions, her mind racing with the possibilities. Could this ritual really hold the key to stopping the shadows? Or was it just the desperate ramblings of a mind pushed to the edge? But the last page, the page with the ritual, was missing. It had been torn out, leaving only a jagged edge and a sense of incompleteness. Sarah's heart sank as she realized that the final piece of the puzzle was lost. The journal had led her this far, only to abandon her at the crucial moment. She felt a surge of frustration and fear, knowing that the answers she sought were just out of reach. The shadows were still out there, waiting, and she was no closer to understanding how to stop them. The echoes of fear reverberated through the forest, each rustle of leaves and snap of twigs amplifying her anxiety. The shadows were not just figments of imagination, they were tangible, malevolent forces. Sarah could sense their presence lurking just beyond her sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. The journal's warnings were not mere paranoia, they were a testament to the real and present danger that the shadows posed. As she delved deeper into the journal, the descriptions of the shadows grew more vivid and terrifying. They were not just dark shapes, but entities with a hunger for fear. The writer had described their eyes, glowing with a sinister light, and their whispers echoing through the trees like a chorus of despair. Sarah could almost hear those whispers now, a chilling reminder that she was not alone in the forest. The shadows were relentless, their pursuit unending. The journal detailed how they would stalk their prey, feeding off their fear and growing stronger with each passing moment. The writer had tried to escape, to find solace in the daylight, but the shadows were always there, lurking in the corners, waiting for the darkness to return. Sarah felt a cold sweat break out on her forehead as she realized the true extent of the danger she was in. The ritual described in the journal was her only hope, but without the final page, it was incomplete. The writer had mentioned protective charms and symbols, but the exact details were missing. Sarah's mind raced as she tried to piece together the fragments of information. She needed to find a way to complete the ritual, to protect herself from the shadows that were closing in. The echoes of fear and the shadows revealed in the journal were not just stories. They were a dire warning of the fate that awaited her if she failed.
Where's Mark?
Emily's voice was sharp with panic. They all looked around, their blood turning to ice. Mark was gone.
He was just here.
John stammered, his voice trembling.
He was just telling a joke.
There was no sign of him, no sound, no struggle. It was as if the forest itself had swallowed him whole. The journal's words echoed in Sarah's mind. They take you, one by one. Just moments ago, Mark had been the life of the group, his laughter echoing through the trees. Now, fear gripped them all, a cold, unrelenting terror that gnawed at their sanity. The forest seemed alive, its shadows dancing menacingly as if mocking their fear. Every rustle, every whisper of the wind sent shivers down their spines. They knew they had to stick together, but the fear of the unknown was tearing them apart. The path ahead was uncertain, and the terror had only just begun. Panic set in. The once confident group of friends now found themselves gripped by an overwhelming sense of dread. The forest, which had seemed so inviting during the day, had transformed into a nightmarish labyrinth. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent shivers down their spines. They could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in on them, suffocating their hope. They searched frantically, their calls for Mark swallowed by the oppressive silence of the woods. The beams of their flashlights cut through the darkness, but it felt like the forest was absorbing the light, refusing to give up its secrets. Each step they took seemed to lead them deeper into the unknown, further away from safety. The air was thick with tension, and every shadow seemed to hide a lurking danger. The trees seemed to press closer, the shadows growing longer and more menacing with each passing moment. It was as if the forest itself was alive, conspiring against them. The once familiar paths now twisted and turned in ways they couldn't understand, leading them in circles. The sense of direction they had relied on was gone, replaced by a disorienting maze of darkness and fear. The labyrinth was not just physical, but also mental. The paths seemed to shift and change, as if the forest was playing tricks on their minds. What had once been a clear trail was now a confusing web of turns and dead ends. The mist that had begun to roll in only added to the confusion, obscuring their vision and making it impossible to see more than a few feet ahead. Every step felt like a gamble, a choice between safety and further peril.
We need to stay together, David said, his voice tight with fear. His eyes darted around, trying to pierce the darkness. He could feel the panic rising in his chest, threatening to overwhelm him. The thought of being alone in this forsaken place was unbearable. He reached out, grabbing his friend's arm, desperate for some sense of security.
But it was too late. The forest had already begun to work its dark magic, pulling them apart. The once strong bonds of friendship were being tested to their limits. Each person was now fighting their own battle against the encroaching darkness, their cries for help growing fainter with each passing second. The forest was playing tricks on them, twisting the paths, disorienting them. The labyrinth seemed to have a mind of its own, isolating them, preying on their fears. Each person was now alone, their only companions the shadows and the eerie sounds of the night. The sense of isolation was crushing, and the realization that they might never find their way out began to sink in. One by one, they became separated. The forest seemed to have a mind of its own, isolating them, preying on their fears. Each person was now alone, their only companions the shadows and the eerie sounds of the night. The sense of isolation was crushing, and the realization that they might never find their way out began to sink in. Each rustling leaf, each crackle of a twig, sounded like approaching footsteps. The forest was alive with sounds, each one more terrifying than the last. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint echoes of their own voices, distorted and haunting. Every noise was a reminder of their vulnerability, a sign that they were not alone in this dark place. Their tools for navigation were useless. Compasses spun wildly, unable to find north. Maps seemed to change with every glance, and even the stars above offered no guidance. The labyrinth was complete, both in the physical and mental realms, trapping them in a web of confusion and fear. The shadows were closing in, isolating them, driving them mad with fear. The darkness seemed to have a life of its own, creeping closer, suffocating them. Their minds played tricks on them, turning every shadow into a potential threat. The forest had become a living nightmare, and their hope was dwindling with each passing moment. They could feel the weight of despair settling in, and the realization that they might never escape this labyrinth of darkness was almost too much to bear. Sarah found herself alone. The forest was a labyrinth closing in on her, suffocating her. And then she saw it, a towering figure made of shadows, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It moved towards her, its silence more terrifying than any scream.
"What do you want?" Sarah cried, her voice raw with terror.
The figure stretched out a hand, its touch promising oblivion. She closed her eyes, bracing herself, but the touch never came. Slowly, she opened her eyes, confusion replacing fear. The figure stood still, watching her, its eyes burning with an unreadable intensity.
"Please," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "I just want to go home."
The figure slowly lowered its hand, a sign of relent, but its eyes never wavered. Sarah took a hesitant step back, her heart pounding, unsure of what would come next. Dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of gold and purple. The forest, once a place of serenity, now held a different meaning for Sarah. The light of the new day seemed to mock the darkness she had just escaped. Each ray of sunlight felt like a reminder of the horrors that had unfolded under the cover of night. The beauty of the dawn was a stark contrast to the terror that still clung to her like a second skin. Sarah found herself at the edge of the woods, the trees behind her dark and menacing. She could still hear the whispers of the forest, the rustling leaves that seemed to carry the voices of her lost friends. The boundary between the safety of the open field and the perilous depths of the forest was clear, but the memories of what lay within those shadows were not so easily left behind. She stood there, torn between relief and sorrow, her heart heavy with the weight of survival. She was alive, but the others were gone. The silence of the morning was deafening, a stark reminder of the voices that would never be heard again. Each step she took away from the forest felt like a betrayal, as if she was leaving a part of herself behind with her lost companions. The emptiness around her mirrored the void within, a gaping chasm of grief and guilt. She had survived, but at what cost? Had it all been a nightmare? The line between reality and illusion blurred in her mind. The events of the night felt surreal, like a twisted dream from which she had yet to fully awaken. She questioned her own sanity, wondering if the horrors she had witnessed were figments of her imagination or a cruel twist of fate. The forest, once a place of adventure and exploration, had become a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. The journal was gone, but the terror lingered, a chilling reminder of the horrors of the night. The pages that once held their plans and dreams were now scattered, lost to the darkness. The remnants of their campsite stood as silent witnesses to the chaos that had erupted. Each broken twig and trampled leaf told a story of desperation and fear. The journal, a symbol of their journey, was now a ghostly echo of what had been and what could never be again.
Sarah stumbled out of the woods, forever marked by the experience. Her clothes were torn, her body bruised, but it was the scars on her soul that weighed the heaviest. Each step was a struggle, her legs weak from the ordeal. The forest had taken so much from her, but it had also left her with a strength she never knew she possessed. She had faced the darkness and emerged, but the shadows of the night would forever be a part of her. The shadows had taken her friends, but they had spared her. The question of why she had been left alive gnawed at her. Was it luck, fate, or something more sinister? The forest held its secrets close, and the answers seemed just out of reach. The dark figures that had haunted their night were now a part of her story, a chapter that would never be closed. The shadows were not just in the forest, they were in her mind, a constant reminder of the night she would never forget. Why? The question haunted her, a constant whisper in the back of her mind. It was a question without an answer, a puzzle with missing pieces. The forest had taken so much, but it had also given her a story of survival, a tale of resilience. As she stood there looking back at the dark woods, she knew that the scars would remain, but they would also be a testament to her strength. The nightmare was over, but its echoes would linger, a haunting melody that would play in her mind for years to come. The escape had been a blur of terror and adrenaline. Sarah remembered the frantic dash through the forest, the way her heart pounded in her chest as she ran for her life. The shadows seemed to reach out for her, their cold fingers brushing against her skin. She had stumbled over roots and branches, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Each fall had felt like the end, but she had pushed herself to get up, to keep moving, driven by the primal instinct to survive. There had been moments when she had to hide, pressing herself against the rough bark of a tree, her breath held as the shadows passed by. The fear had been suffocating, a vice around her chest. She had felt the presence of the dark figures, their eyes searching for her in the gloom. Each second had stretched into an eternity, the silence broken only by the pounding of her heart. It was in those moments that she had felt the most vulnerable, the most alone. But then, she had seen a faint trail, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. The path had been narrow and overgrown, but it had led her away from the heart of the forest. She had followed it, her steps quickening as the first light of dawn began to filter through the trees. The sight of the open field had been a beacon, a promise of safety. She had stumbled out of the woods, her body exhausted but her spirit unbroken. The physical scars would heal, but the emotional ones would take longer. Sarah looked at the bruises on her arms, the cuts and scrapes that marked her skin. They were a testament to her ordeal, a reminder of the night she had survived. But they were also symbols of her strength, proof that she had faced the darkness and come out the other side. The forest had left its mark on her, but it had also forged her into someone stronger, someone who could face whatever came next. As she walked away from the forest, Sarah knew that she would never be the same. The experience had changed her, had left her with scars that would never fully fade, but it had also given her a new sense of purpose, a determination to live her life to the fullest. She looked back at the dark woods one last time, a silent farewell to the place that had taken so much from her. The nightmare was over, but the lessons it had taught her would stay with her forever.
Months later, a group of hikers stumbled upon an old leather-bound journal hidden beneath a pile of leaves in the forest. Drawn in by curiosity, they opened it, their laughter echoing through the silent woods. The journal spoke of shadows, of fear of a terrifying ritual on New Year's Eve. It detailed the cycle of those who dared to enter the forest each year, unaware of the lurking danger. The last page was missing, torn out as if to hide the final dreadful secret. Unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows, they continued deeper into the woods, their laughter swallowed by the dense trees. The cycle begins anew, as it has for generations, each group drawn by the same eerie allure, only to vanish without a trace. Narrator, calm, yet with a hint of foreboding. The survivors gather around a flickering campfire, its light casting long shadows on their weary faces. They share their harrowing experiences, voices hushed, as if the forest itself is listening. Survivor 1. I still see those shadows in my dreams. They never really leave, do they? Survivor 2. We can't let this happen again. We need to find a way to end it once and for all. Narrator, building tension. The forest seems to whisper around them, the wind rustling through the leaves like a soft, sinister laugh. The air is thick with the weight of their shared trauma, yet also with a glimmer of resolve. They know the dangers that lie ahead, but they are determined to face them. Survivor 3. We need to understand what we're dealing with. There's got to be more to that journal. Maybe there are clues we missed. Survivor 4. Agreed, we need to go back, retrace our steps and find that missing page. It might hold the key to breaking the cycle. Narrator, somber, yet hopeful. As the fire crackles and the night deepens, the survivors make their plans. They know the path ahead is fraught with peril, but they are no longer alone. Together they will confront the darkness, armed with knowledge and a fierce determination. Narrator, whispering almost as if the forest speaks, but the shadows are always watching, waiting. The cycle may continue, but this time the survivors are ready. Narrator, echoing the earlier tension. The forest holds its breath, the night silent but for the crackling fire. And somewhere deep within the darkness the shadows stir. Narrator, reflective. As they sit in silence, each survivor reflects on the journey that brought them here. They think of the friends they've lost, the battles they've fought, and the strength they've found in each other. Survivor 5, we must document everything. Future generations need to know what happened here. Survivor 6, yes, our story must be told. It's the only way to ensure this never happens again. Narrator, hopeful. Under the vast expanse of the night sky, they find solace in each other's presence, knowing that together they are stronger. As dawn approaches, they prepare for the challenges ahead, their hearts steeled by the night's reflections. With the first light of day, they step into the forest, ready to face whatever comes their way. Narrator, whispering, almost as if the forest speaks. But the shadows are always watching, waiting. The cycle may continue, but this time the survivors are ready. Narrator, calm, with a growing sense of urgency. As dawn breaks, the survivors find a hidden path that might lead them out of the forest. This path, shrouded in mystery, has an eerie allure, as if it has been waiting for them. The first rays of sunlight pierce through the dense canopy, casting an almost ethereal glow on the newly discovered trail. The light dances on the leaves, creating a mosaic of hope and uncertainty. Survivor 1. Look over there. That path. It wasn't here before, was it? Survivor 2. No, it wasn't. It's like the forest is trying to help us, or maybe lead us into another trap. Narrator, with a hint of foreboding. The path is fraught with new perils, and they must summon all their courage to proceed. The air grows colder, and the shadows seem to lengthen, as if warning them of the dangers ahead. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the whispers of unseen creatures. Every step they take is accompanied by the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of unknown animals. Survivor 3. We don't have a choice. We have to take it. Staying here isn't an option. Survivor 4. Agreed. We need to stay close and watch each other's backs. Let's move. Narrator, building tension. Step by step they navigate the treacherous terrain, their senses heightened by the constant threat of danger. The path twists and turns, each bend hiding potential threats. The forest seems to close in around them, as if reluctant to let them go. The trees loom tall and menacing, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. Survivor 1. Did you hear that? Something's following us. Survivor 2. Keep moving. We can't stop now. Narrator, somber yet determined. Each step is a battle against the unknown, but the survivors are united in their resolve. The path is narrow, with steep drops on either side, making every step a test of their balance and bravery. They push forward, hearts pounding, knowing that every second counts. The dawn light offers a glimmer of hope, but the forest's secrets weigh heavily on their minds. Survivor 3. There! I see the end of the path. We're almost there. Survivor 4. Stay sharp. It could be another trick. Narrator, hopeful yet cautious. With the end of the path in sight, they muster their last reserves of strength. The forest seems to hold its breath, as if watching their every move. The forest seems to hold its breath, as if watching their every move. The shadows may stir, but the light of dawn brings a new hope. Narrator, whispering as the forest speaks. The shadows may stir, but the light of dawn brings a new hope. The path ahead is still uncertain, but the dawn's light offers a promise of escape. The survivors press on, determined to break free from the forest's grip. Narrator echoing the earlier tension. The forest remains silent, the hidden path now behind them. The dawn's light fades as they move forward, but their resolve remains strong. And somewhere, deep within the darkness, the shadows continue their watch. Narrator calm, reflective. The survivors finally reach the edge of the forest, the first rays of dawn illuminating their path to freedom. The memories of their ordeal are etched into their minds, a haunting reminder of the darkness they faced. Survivor 1. We made it, but at what cost? Survivor 2. The forest, it took so much from us, but it also revealed something, secrets, that we can't ignore. Narrator, with a sense of determination. Though they are free, the bond forged in the depths of the forgotten forest compels them to make a solemn vow. Survivor 3. We can't let this happen to anyone else. We need to come back. We need to end this. Survivor 4. Agreed. We owe it to those who didn't make it and to ourselves. Narrator, building resolve. They vow to return one day to uncover the secrets of the forgotten forest and put an end to its cycle of terror. The forest may have released its grip for now, but its shadows still linger in their hearts. Survivor 1. Next time, we'll be ready. We'll find the truth. Survivor 2. And we'll make sure this forest never claims another soul. Narrator, hopeful yet solemn. As they walk away from the forest, the first light of dawn casts long shadows behind them. They know their journey is far from over, but for the first time, they feel a glimmer of hope. Narrator, whispering with a sense of finality. The forgotten forest holds its breath, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. The cycle continues, but the survivors are determined to break it. Narrator, echoing their resolve. Together, they walk into the twilight, their hearts set on a future where the forest's dark grasp is finally broken. And somewhere, deep within the shadows, the forest stirs, knowing that its greatest challenge is yet to come. Narrator, reflective, suspenseful. In the twilight they stand together, their vows echoing through the forest, a promise to return and uncover its mysteries. The forest, shrouded in mist, seems to whisper back, its secrets still hidden. With each step they take away from the forest, their resolve strengthens, knowing that one day they will return to face the darkness once more.